Perry Como was halfway through Catch a Falling Star when he stopped singing. Not a pause, not a breath, just stopped. The orchestra kept playing. The studio audience sat frozen. The NBC cameras kept rolling, broadcasting live to 40 million American homes. And Perry Como, America's most reliable man, the voice that tucked a generation into bed every week, simply set down his microphone and walked off the stage. No explanation, no apology, just silence. What happened in the next 90 seconds didn't just shock the nation. It exposed a truth about television that the networks had been hiding for years. And it revealed the side of Perry Como that fame had carefully concealed. The man who would risk everything to protect someone nobody else cared about. This is the story of February 14th, 1957. The night the calmest man in America finally snapped. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand Perry Como in 1957. He wasn't just famous. He was America's comfort food. Every Saturday night at 8 p.m., families gathered around their black and white television sets to watch the Perry Como show. No drama, no controversy, just Perry in his cardigan sweater, singing in that warm, effortless voice that made everything feel safe. Perry was the anti-rock and roll. While Elvis was gyrating his hips and driving parents crazy, Perry Como was the guy your grandmother trusted. He was steady, predictable, safe. But that safety was a carefully constructed illusion. Behind the scenes, Perry Como was fighting a quiet war with NBC. Not over money, not over creative control, over something the network considered far less important: people. Perry had one rule that drove the executives crazy. He refused to let anyone on his crew be fired without cause. Not just the stars, not just the directors. Everyone. The lighting guys, the camera operators, the stagehands who swept the studio floor. NBC hated this. To them, crew members were replaceable parts in a machine. If someone slowed down production or cost too much, you fired them and hired someone cheaper. That's how television worked in 1957. But Perry Como didn't see it that way. He'd grown up in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, the son of an Italian immigrant who worked in a steel mill. Perry understood what it meant to be disposable. He'd spent years as a barber before his singing career took off, cutting hair for men who worked themselves to death for wages that barely fed their families. When Perry finally made it, when he became the biggest star on television, he made a promise to himself. Nobody on his show would be treated like they were disposable. Nobody. The network tolerated this quirk because Perry Como made them too much money to argue with. But they were always looking for ways to remind him who really had the power. February 14th, 1957 was the day they pushed too far. The trouble started 3 days earlier. Perry arrived at NBC Studio 6B for rehearsals on Tuesday morning. His stage manager, a man named Eddie Pollock, was waiting for him with bad news. "Perry, we've got a problem. They're cutting Mickey." Perry stopped halfway through taking off his coat. "What do you mean, cutting Mickey?" Mickey Brennan was one of the boom operators on the show. He'd been with Perry since the beginning, 3 years earlier. Mickey was 58 years old with arthritis in his hands that was getting worse every month. But he knew Perry's show better than anyone. He could anticipate every movement, every camera angle. He made the show work. "The new producer," Eddie said quietly, guy named Harlan Foster, came down from the executive floor, says Mickey's too slow, says we need younger, faster crew members if we're going to compete with the other variety shows. Perry's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Mickey's not slow. Mickey's careful. There's a difference." "I know that. You know that. But Foster's got the numbers to back him up. Last week's show ran 4 minutes over. Foster says it's because Mickey can't keep pace. Last week ran over because the guest singer forgot his lyrics and we had to do 3 takes. That had nothing to do with Mickey." Eddie shrugged helplessly. "Foster doesn't care. He wants Mickey gone by Friday. Already got a replacement lined up. Some kid from the West Coast works for half what Mickey makes." Perry stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty stage. Then he said something that made Eddie nervous. "Set up a meeting with Foster. Tell him I want to talk." "Perry, I don't think—" "Set it up, Eddie." The meeting happened Wednesday afternoon in Harlan Foster's office on the executive floor. Foster was young, maybe 35, with slicked back hair and a suit that cost more than Mickey Brennan made in a month. He was part of the new generation of television executives, the ones who saw programming as pure business, not art. Perry walked in without knocking. "Mr. Como." Foster didn't stand up. "I assume you're here about the personnel changes." "Mickey Brennan isn't a personnel change. He's a person." Foster smiled thinly. "Of course he is, and I'm sure he'll find work somewhere else, but this show needs to run more efficiently. Mickey's a nice guy, but nice doesn't keep us on schedule." "Mickey's been with me for 3 years. He knows this show better than anyone. You fire him, you're going to lose that. Then we'll train someone new. Mr. Como, I appreciate your loyalty, but you're a singer, not a producer. Let me worry about crew management." Perry leaned forward slightly. "I have a clause in my contract. No crew member gets fired without my approval." Foster's smile disappeared. "That clause applies to above-the-line talent. Directors, writers, musical arrangers, not boom operators. It says personnel. Mickey is personnel. Mr. Como, don't make this difficult. NBC has been very generous with you. We've given you creative freedom that most stars don't get. But there are limits. Mickey Brennan is being let go. That's final." Perry stood up. "Then we have a problem." Foster finally stood too, his voice hardening. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. You fire Mickey, I walk." The room went very quiet. Outside the office windows you could see the Manhattan skyline, all those buildings full of people who would have killed for Perry Como's spot on NBC's Saturday night lineup. Foster spoke carefully. "You have a contract. You can't just walk. Watch me. You destroy your career over a boom operator?" Perry looked at him for a long moment. "You really don't get it, do you? This show works because everyone on it matters. Not just me. Everyone. You start treating people like they're disposable, the whole thing falls apart. And, yeah, I'll walk away before I let that happen." Foster's face went red. "Get out of my office." Perry left without another word. Thursday, February 13th, the day before the live broadcast. Mickey Brennan came to work not knowing it was his last day. Perry found him during lunch break sitting alone in the equipment room, eating a sandwich his wife had packed. "Hey, Mick." Mickey looked up and smiled. "Perry, you need something?" Perry sat down on an equipment crate. "You hear anything from the front office?" Mickey's smile faded a little. "Eddie told me there might be some changes coming. Said not to worry about it." He paused. "Should I be worrying about it?" Perry wanted to tell him the truth. Wanted to tell him that Foster was going to fire him tomorrow right before the show, so there'd be no time for Perry to react. But if he told Mickey now, Mickey would spend his last day in misery. "Just do what you always do," Perry said quietly. "Do your job, do it well. Let me handle the rest." Mickey studied his face. "You're fighting for me, aren't you?" "Mick, don't." Mickey's voice was soft but firm. "Don't put your career on the line for me. I'm an old man with bad hands. There'll be other jobs. Not like this one. Perry, I'm serious. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. This show is bigger than me. Bigger than both of us." Perry stood up. "Get some rest, Mick. Big show tomorrow." But as he walked away, Perry Como had already made his decision. He just hadn't told anyone yet. February 14th, 1957. Valentine's Day. The day started normally enough. Perry arrived at the studio at 3 p.m. for final rehearsals. The show would go live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Mickey was there, operating his boom like he always did, unaware that this was supposed to be his last day. At 5:30 p.m., Harlan Foster appeared on the studio floor with 2 security guards. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Foster walked straight to Mickey. "Mr. Brennan, I need you to come with me." Mickey looked confused. "We're in the middle of rehearsal." "Your services are no longer required. These gentlemen will escort you to collect your personal effects." The studio went silent. Perry was across the room talking to his musical director, but he heard every word. He started walking toward Foster. Eddie tried to stop him. "Perry, don't—" But Perry kept walking. He positioned himself between Foster and Mickey. "What's going on?" Foster's voice was ice. "This doesn't concern you, Mr. Como. We're making a personnel change." 2 hours before a live broadcast? "We have a replacement ready. Everything is under control." Perry looked at Mickey. The old man's face had gone pale. His hands were trembling, but not from arthritis this time. Perry turned back to Foster. "You're really going to do this? Right now?" "I don't answer to you." "Actually," Perry said quietly, "you do. I'm the one 40 million people are tuning in to see. Not you." Foster stepped closer, lowering his voice so the crew couldn't hear. "You pull anything tonight, Como, and your career at NBC is over. Do you understand? We'll sue you for breach of contract. We'll destroy you." Perry didn't blink. "Then I guess you better start writing that lawsuit." He turned to Mickey. "Go home, Mick. Take the night off." Mickey's eyes were wet. "Perry, I can work. I can—" "Go home to your wife. It's Valentine's Day. Be with her." Foster's face was purple now. "Brennan, you leave this building and you're fired permanently." Mickey looked between Perry and Foster, torn. Perry put a hand on his shoulder. "Go, Mick. Trust me." Mickey left. The security guards followed him out. The studio crew stood frozen, not knowing what to do. Foster turned to Perry, his voice shaking with rage. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Perry didn't answer. He just walked to his dressing room and closed the door. At 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before airtime, Perry Como was still in his dressing room. Eddie knocked frantically. "Perry, we're on in 15. We need you in makeup." "I'm not doing the show." Eddie's voice cracked. "What?" "You heard me. I'm not doing it." "Perry, this is live television. We can't just— We don't have a backup. If you don't go on, we've got nothing. Dead air for an hour. That's NBC's problem. Perry, please, think about the crew. Think about all these people who depend on this show." That stopped him. Perry opened the door. Eddie looked terrified. "What do you want me to do?" Perry asked quietly. "You want me to go out there and smile and sing while they fire Mickey for being too old? While they treat people like garbage? When does it stop, Eddie?" "I don't know. But I know that if you tank this show, Foster wins. He'll fire you, bring in someone who won't cause problems, and everything you've built here is gone." Perry stood there, torn. Eddie was right. Walking away would hurt everyone. The crew, the band, even the audience who'd been waiting all week for their Saturday night hour of comfort. But staying meant surrendering. It meant admitting that the network could do whatever they wanted, and Perry Como would just smile and sing. At 7:55 p.m., Perry walked out to the stage. The crew looked relieved. Foster, watching from the control booth, smiled his thin smile. He'd won. The orchestra warmed up. The studio audience settled into their seats. The floor director counted down. "Live in 5, 4, 3. The familiar theme song started. The curtains parted. Perry Como walked into the spotlight, that famous easy smile on his face. "Good evening, folks. Happy Valentine's Day." 40 million people were watching. Perry launched into his opening number, Some Enchanted Evening. His voice was perfect, smooth as silk, and that effortless tone that made everything sound easy. The audience swayed along. In living rooms across America, families smiled. Everything seemed normal. Then Perry moved into his second song, Catch a Falling Star, his biggest hit, the one everyone was waiting for. He made it through the first verse perfectly, and Catch a Falling Star and Put It in Your Pocket never let it fade away. Then, right in the middle of the second verse, Perry Como stopped singing. The orchestra kept playing for a few bars before trailing off into confused silence. Perry stood at center stage, microphone in hand, staring at something in the wings. The studio audience murmured nervously. In the control booth, Foster grabbed his headset. "Como, what are you doing? Get back on script." Perry slowly set down his microphone on the piano. Then he started walking toward the edge of the stage. "Perry!" The floor director was frantically signaling him. "We're live! You're live!" Perry kept walking. He stepped off the stage, walked past the cameras, past the confused crew members, straight toward the exit. Eddie ran after him. "Perry, where are you going?" Perry stopped at the door and turned around. He looked at the cameras, still broadcasting his empty stage to 40 million homes. And then Perry Como said the only words he would speak before disappearing. "I'm sorry, folks. I can't do this anymore." He walked out. The studio erupted in chaos. The orchestra didn't know what to play. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or panic. The cameras kept rolling, showing nothing but an empty stage and the abandoned microphone. In the control booth, Harlan Foster was screaming, "Cut to commercial! Cut to commercial!" But it was too late. For 90 full seconds, American television broadcast dead air, just an empty stage, a confused orchestra, and the ghost of Perry Como's last words hanging in the silence. NBC went to an emergency rerun. The phones lit up. Newspapers would call it the most shocking moment in television history. And Perry Como? He went home to his wife and kids, took off his stage clothes, and didn't answer his phone for 3 days. But that's not the end of the story. On Monday morning, Perry Como received a phone call from the president of NBC, not Harlan Foster, his boss. "Mr. Como, we need to talk." They met that afternoon, not in Foster's office, in the president's private dining room. "You cost us a lot of money Saturday night," the president said. "Sponsors are furious. The press is having a field day." Perry nodded. "I know." "You also," the president continued, "made NBC look like we don't care about our people. And you made me realize something. You're right. We don't." Perry looked up, surprised. "Harlan Foster has been fired," the president said, "effective immediately. We're promoting Eddie Pollock to producer, and we're implementing a new policy. No crew member on any NBC variety show can be terminated without performer approval. You get your clause, properly enforced this time." Perry sat back in his chair. "And Mickey?" "Mickey Brennan is rehired with a raise and a formal apology, which I will deliver personally." "Why?" Perry asked quietly. "Why change everything now?" The president smiled sadly. "Because for 90 seconds on Saturday night, every television in America showed an empty stage. And you know what people did? They didn't change the channel. They sat there and waited to see if you'd come back. That's when I realized. They're not watching because of the songs, or the sets, or the sponsors. They're watching because they trust you. And if we lose that trust, we lose everything." He extended his hand. "Come back, Perry. On your terms this time." Perry Como returned to NBC the following Saturday. When he walked onto the stage, the audience gave him a 5-minute standing ovation. Mickey Brennan was in his usual spot, operating the boom, tears streaming down his weathered face. Perry didn't mention what happened the week before. He just smiled that familiar smile and said, "Good evening, folks. Sorry about last week. I had to take care of something important." Then he sang Catch a Falling Star, from beginning to end, perfect and uninterrupted. The show ran for 12 more years. Perry Como became not just a star, but a legend. And Mickey Brennan worked on every single episode until he retired with full benefits in 1963. Years later, a reporter asked Perry why he'd risked everything that night. Perry's answer was simple. Because Mickey mattered. That's all. He mattered. That's the real story of the night Perry Como walked off stage. Not a story about rebellion or ego or drama. A story about a man who understood that real power isn't about how many people watch you. It's about what you do when nobody's watching. It's about knowing that every person matters, even the ones holding the boom microphone nobody sees. Perry Como was America's calmest man. But on February 14, 1957, he showed the world that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop performing and start protecting. And that's a legacy worth more than any hit song.